My guest now is the Infrastructure Shadow Minister within the Labor ranks. I'm talking about Anthony Albanese. Thanks very much for your company.
Good morning, Peter.
What did you make of the Prime Minister crowing about this tunnel to do with the Snowy Hydro scheme and all of their successes on infrastructure?
Well, there's nothing to see here as far as the Prime Minister's concerned.
I bet he'd love to get in that tunnel as quickly as possible. Maybe they could seal it for him.
I think there's people queuing up to seal him in a tunnel to never be seen again. Look, I do feel maybe even a hint of sympathy for Malcolm Turnbull. The real problem, though, is that because he and Tony Abbott are caught in this cage fight where they're sort of wrestling each other in this downward spiral, they're taking the government with them. And it's pretty clear that the government isn't able to actually govern in the national interest because it's completely distracted by its own internal divisions.
Hang on a second, Anthony Albanese. I've got to draw a comparison here because you guys had your fair share of troubles in government between Rudd and Gillard, but you argued repeatedly at the time that despite all of that fermenting behind the scenes, you were continuing to be able to govern effectively. It goes both ways, doesn't it?
Well, we got things done. This
so
is
did
a
they.
government.
Gonski
Look
2.0.
at the clean energy package. The clean energy package that was put up after the Finkel report has 50 recommendations. The government say they've agreed with 49 of them. The one, though, that matters, the clean energy target, has been put off into the never-never. You have circumstances whereby, on marriage equality, I mean, for goodness sake, the government tried to implement its policy of a plebiscite. It was rejected by the Parliament. It'll be rejected next year if it's put. It'll be rejected next term if it's put. It'll be rejected next decade. Okay, it isn't going to happen.
But Anthony Albanese, on that though, from your perspective, I know that you're an advocate for marriage equality, so I'm just talking about the politics here, not the policy. I know you'd like to see it enacted sooner rather than later, but it's got to be manna from heaven, doesn't it? If that's going to be a continuing issue, a crown of thorns around the scalp of the coalition?
Well, which is why if anyone has half a political instinct between them, the coalition will get this done and get it off the agenda. And everyone will wonder what the fuss was about because existing marriages and relationships won't be impacted by this at all. What you'll see is jobs created in the tourism sector by the fact that people who happen to be of the same gender can marry each other. And there'll be an economic bonus from this with no downside. And that's why the Parliament should vote. It's absurd that a majority of the Parliament supports this reform. The government has, in my view, very clearly tried to honour its commitment, of which, of course, was just a fix anyway to placate its own internal divisions. No one seriously can suggest that we need a plebiscite on marriage equality, but not one on the Gonski reforms on education, not one on the NDIS, not one on action on climate change, not one on the budget. But the one issue we're going to take to the Australian people is marriage equality. I'm a supporter of marriage equality, but I don't think it's more important than the future of the economy or the future of the planet.
Now, you're a former Leader of the House, as is Christopher Pyne now. You two do various segments together in the media. Do you think that he should be sacked, as Conservatives are saying, for what transpired at that Black Hand function and subsequently leaked?
Well, I think that Christopher Pyne has a greater knowledge over the functioning of the Parliament than many of the people who are no doubt out there backgrounding against him and attempting to undermine him.
So is that a defence of him?
Some of those struggle to find the chamber, Peter. That's the truth of the matter. You have ministers who don't have a clue about the way that the Parliament functions, and the idea that this bitterness and the attacks that are there against Christopher Pyne and against each other, really, I just wish they'd stop and actually govern for the nation.
But just let me pull you in on this one, though, Anthony Albanese. I mean, come on. Do you think, you know, you can cross the aisle for an opinion on this. Do you think that Christopher Pyne deserves to be demoted for what's happened, or do you think he deserves to stay on?
No, I don't. And I say that objectively. You know, it probably is, you know, in politics 1A rule book, never miss a chance to kick an opponent. But the truth is the Australian public are sick of it. They're sick of bickering between the parties and they're sick of bickering within the parties. And what we're seeing here is a bunch of people who are disgruntled, who take every opportunity to background against each other. I mean, people like Eric Abetz and Tony Abbott, for that matter. I mean, Tony Abbott's out there with this alternative manifesto which doesn't resemble at all what he did when he was the Prime Minister. He was the Prime Minister of this nation who put in place the existing renewable energy target, for example. And now he's out there saying it's all doom and gloom and it should all go, and really having a manifesto that is from the 1950s. It would take this country back. It's angry, it's nasty, and it's about time that he got over himself, frankly, and the group of disgruntled people around him got over themselves as well, because they are doing a great deal of damage. And I'm concerned that we do need to have a responsible debate over issues like the clean energy target and to get a responsible position on climate change. Labor has been constructive on this.
All right, let me jump in, Anthony Albanese, before we run out of time. I want to steer you to another topic. It was the way that the government tried to close out the last sitting period last week. They got Gonski through, sure, but they were also targeting Bill Shorten over the CFMEU, saying that he wasn't strong enough to attack that Stecker character from the union movement and you know, kick him out of the party. Do you think he should be kicked out of the Labor Party?
Well, that's a matter for the organisational wing, but I'll say this about Bill Shorten. Bill Shorten does have strength of character. He is able to bring the fact that he has a record in the trade union movement to bear in terms of the issues that are really of concern for Australians.
Kevin Rudd
and the
did
big
do
announcement,
it, though,
of course, in
Kevin
the last
Rudd
24 hours is about penalty rates.
But Kevin Rudd, sorry to interrupt, but Kevin Rudd,
issue
but
that
Anthony
Australians
Albanese,
are interested
Kevin
in is the
Rudd,
fact that so many low-paid Australians are going to get a real wage cut from this weekend, and that's something that we'll continue to campaign on. Bill Shorten has said that he'll restore that, and I think that is a policy that will receive a great deal of support, rather than arguing about what some obscure individual did. Quite clearly, his comments are unacceptable. They were opposed by various people within the Labor Party from Bill Shorten down, and of course that is entirely appropriate.
All right, Anthony Albanese, we are out of time now. We appreciate you joining us on Newsday, though. Thanks for your company.
Good to be with you, Peter.
Cheers.